All right, so Kelly, you sent me an article last night. Why
Mhm.
don't you give us the title of the article and then I guess an overview of kind of what it was about or the point that they were trying to make, and then we'll talk about it and see if we think that it's valid, if it's relevant to buyers and sellers in our market here in Pittsburgh today, right now, here in the beginning of December of 2022, or if it's just another one of those clickbait headline, uh, not really true or
Mhm.
valuable as some of them have been. So go ahead.
So I came across this article last night. The title is Housing Market 2022. Is it cheaper to buy or rent in Pittsburgh?
Is it cheaper to buy or rent? Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
that's the subject of the article. Is it cheaper to buy or rent in Pittsburgh? So this is in what, the Pittsburgh Business Times?
Yes.
So this is specific to Pittsburgh. This is good. And you didn't hit the paywall there, so you must have paid for this Pittsburgh Business Times.
I know I didn't.
No? Okay.
No.
Interesting. This must be a free article or something. Okay.
Yeah, so they specifically use the data from Allegheny County, and they said Allegheny County it remains more affordable to buy compared to renting.
In Allegheny County, it remains more affordable to buy compared to renting. That's what
Mm-hmm.
they said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they did all the counties surrounding Allegheny as well, I'm assuming?
I also did a few other counties like Butler County. I think a few other. Yeah.
Yeah, you sent me the article and I kind of briefly looked at it. I saw like Fayette County
Oh
on
yeah, Fayette
there, and
County.
yeah,
Yeah.
we don't even do business in Fayette County, and really that's I probably wouldn't even consider that Pittsburgh necessarily. Allegheny County, they're saying it's more affordable to buy as opposed to rent. I would say that that really depends on a couple of factors. That is not going to be true across the board, I don't think. Um, in terms of affordability, are they talking about monthly payment? What are they talking about?
Yeah, I think they're talking about like monthly
They're
payment.
talking
Yeah.
about monthly payment. So
Mm-hmm.
they're saying that it's cheaper to buy a house and have a mortgage on, I guess, a house in general than it is to rent a house. So in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County, the median price is 230,000 or so. Well, that's not just Allegheny County, but that's the surrounding five counties. Again, Fayette County wouldn't even be considered in that. But it's 230 some thousand. So if you buy a house in Pittsburgh for 230,000 and you have a mortgage, that at 5%, that's going to be, I don't know what it would be at 5%, 1,700 maybe, just to throw out a number. Um, is that house going to rent for more? Is it going to rent for 1,800, 1,900, 2,000? I don't think so. Not in most cases, not in most neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, $125,000 house, yeah, you could buy that house with next to nothing in terms of a down payment if you FHA, or especially if you can do VA or USDA. There's like the PHFA grants that I believe are still funding some loans right now, or down payments or assistance for some buyers. So yeah, in that market where it's 120,000 and you can buy the house with next to nothing down, and your monthly payments $1,000 a month, we know for a fact that those same houses are renting for 13, 14, 1,500. So it's definitely cheaper to buy in like the $125,000 price range, even probably 150, $160,000 price range. You're
Mm-hmm.
starting to get close. I would probably even say that at 160,000, um, you might be pushing it, because rents in a lot of neighborhoods are not going over like 15, $1,600 a
Mm-hmm.
month. Not in the neighborhoods where you can buy a house for 150 or 160,000. Now, if you're buying a $300,000 house, I'm just thinking about like some townhomes in some neighborhoods that I know, and even single family homes where the homes might uh, a $300,000 home might rent for, in some cases that's still only going to be 1,800 to 2,000 a month. In some cases, maybe 23, 2,400.
Mm-hmm.
But your mortgage payment with property taxes and everything, and with interest rates being what they are, is probably going to be close to that, if not even more. If you get up to like a 500, 600, $700,000 house, like I mean, I know some people that have sold their starter homes that that they bought for $150,000 10 years ago, and now it's worth 270. Maybe they've put some money into it, got some equity that way, along with just obviously the market appreciation. And they sold those homes, kind of at the top of the market. They knew they didn't want to stay in that home for another 5 years. They knew they didn't want to continue to do more updates and more fixes as things got older and continued to break. And they knew that the market was good. So they sold the home. They weren't sure where they wanted to end up long term yet. So they went and rented something that was a condo or a townhouse or maybe even a single family home, but they did that at 2,500 a month, 3,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
They cashed out $100,000 in equity off the sale of their home. Well, that they could basically pay the $2,000 a month rent for you know 4 years off of that and not have any monthly mortgage or other rent payment or housing expenses. Aside from that for the next 4 years. And then especially if you're in like a townhouse or a condo or something like that where you've got some amenities and you don't have to worry about as much maintenance, particularly like exterior maintenance. And if it's a newer home, you probably don't have to worry about much interior maintenance either. I mean, that's like we did that, right? That's like going on a vacation that you don't have to leave from for 3 years, right? That's like staying at a resort almost, and not again not having to worry about those things while you figure out what your long-term plan is going to be. So we've had people do that, um, you know while they're building a home or even thinking about building a home. We've had people do that while they're waiting on job opportunities to see if they're even going to be here in the local market next year, but they know that they have to sell the house before they buy anyways. So they said instead of trying to condense everything into one 3 month period or something like that, let's just sell the home this year, figure it out, enjoy the this nice rental property that we found. Tiffany's vacuuming right outside the door while we're recording. I thought she was done on this floor before we started. So if you're listening to this and you hear a vacuum cleaner in the audio, my bad. I apologize. Let me just adjust these microphones a little bit. So anyway, yeah, that's one example of people I know who have rented like some really nice houses for $2,500 a month where, and I kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole with that, but point being, I know that if they were to buy those houses, they wouldn't sell for that, or they wouldn't, their mortgage payment wouldn't be what it is. I kind of jumped ahead of myself there. I said sell, but I'm thinking also, closing costs in terms of buying. And then if you were going to stay in the house for 2 or 3 years, what your closing costs would be when you go to sell that house too. Now, I know people that sold their homes 2 years ago thinking we were at the top of the market and moved into a property that, maybe they could have bought for 300,000 and now is worth, close to 400,000. So they missed out on some appreciation there. But again, it's not money that they ever really had, right? If you go back to their first home and you look at the amount of appreciation that they kind of gave up there, it's not as much in comparison. So I think renting is a good strategy sometimes for some people, especially when you're upgrading and looking to upgrade in a market. And I don't think that you can buy when you get up into the 300 to 400 plus. I don't think you can buy a house as affordably as what you can rent one if we're just looking at upfront costs. Well, of course on upfront costs, but if we're looking at monthly payment, if we're looking on maintenance costs, the only downside of that would be appreciation and the fact that rent typically increases every year. So if you're planning to rent a house to stay in for 5 or 10 years, then at some point, probably in the next 2 to 3, it's going to become, she's vacuuming again, it must be really dirty out there. At some point in the next 2 or 3 years, that rent probably will exceed what your mortgage is or was or would have been, because the great thing about mortgage payments is that once you have a mortgage, all those terms stay the same unless you refinance or something like that. The only thing that might go up is your property taxes, and will go up, but when is the question there. Whereas your rent's probably going to go up, if not every year, at least every 2 to 3 years. So staying in a place beyond that 2 to 3 year mark and renting is not going to be a good strategy, and it will outweigh. I think they're looking at probably median numbers. And again, if you're looking at the median sales price versus the median rent in Pittsburgh, I think it's probably close. Um, and if you factor in upfront costs, closing costs, and down payment and all of that stuff, and maintenance on a $250,000 house, um, I don't think it's a no-brainer necessarily to say that buying is better than renting. I think there's a lot of cases where obviously buying is better than renting for long-term purposes, but for short-term, I would disagree with that. Um, I don't know anywhere where you're going to rent a house cheaper than you're going to buy it as like or more affordably or more economically or more responsibly as a long-term financial plan. So it's almost the point of the article is almost kind of silly. And the other thing is most people who are looking at renting because they can't afford to buy, it's not the monthly payment that's keeping them from being able to afford to buy. It's the down payment and the closing costs. Um, that's why I see all these like memes and articles that are like, and TikToks that are like, you know, uh, I can't afford, the bank says I can't qualify for a mortgage that's, $1,500 a month. So I'll just keep paying my $2,000 a month rent, from now on. And if you can afford to pay $2,000 a month rent, I don't know why a bank wouldn't qualify you for $1,500 a month on a mortgage. It's not that hard to get a mortgage. Uh, People aren't having trouble getting mortgages. If you can't get approved for a mortgage for $1,500 a month, then it's because you have a lot of other debt. So pay off the debt, right? Like, uh, there's the debt to income, and then there's like the down payment and the closing costs. So I think saving up money for a down payment is a big problem for a lot of people. And of course, there's programs that will help people with that. The problem with that is, if you're in one of those programs and you're putting little money down and you're asking for sellers to assist you with closing costs and you're using these grants that, can really be a pain in the butt for everybody involved, and you're in a competitive market where you're competing against another buyer who's using, cash to buy the property, then you're probably not going to get your offer accepted. So there's a lot of other problems that go into it besides it just being hard to get approved for a mortgage. And I don't think it's hard to get approved for a mortgage, but I don't think that everybody who can't afford their rent should be going out there and rushing to go and buy a house. Because if you're having trouble paying your rent, I don't care what your mortgage is, you're going to have trouble owning a home and paying for maintenance and all of those other things. So
Yeah, maintenance is quite a lot, especially after like me and my husband moved into the house. We didn't. We thought, oh, the mortgage is not bad, but and then we have to buy so many new things, lawnmower and snowblower for everything. That's a lot of money. Yeah.
yeah, and that's right off the bat, like as soon as you move in, and then knock on wood, hopefully it won't happen for you guys, but a year down the line, the furnace breaks. I mean, when we bought our first house, we pretty much extended as far as we could go. And we were in at the time, again, this was 10 years ago, but at the time we were in that 120 to $130,000 price range where our mortgage was $950 a month. I think we were paying like $750 a month for the duplex, 2-bedroom duplex that we were renting prior to that. So it actually was a pretty significant increase. Now that house today would probably rent for like $1,300.
Wow.
And it would probably sell for 180 to close to 200. But we replaced the furnace within the first 2 years that we lived there. We replaced the air conditioning the following year. We replaced the water heater. We had fleas get into our house. We didn't even have a dog or anything. We had fleas get into our
Oh
house
my
and had to
gosh.
tear all the flooring out of the entire house. So we had to do new flooring on the entire house. That was unexpected. We had a retaining wall outside fall over twice. And then the air conditioner that was only 2 years old broke again. So we
Oh
had
my
to do
gosh.
that. And when we moved in, they told us two things. They said, your garage is falling over. It's a detached garage. It's falling over. Um, and two, your roof only has like 5 years left on it. Well, we were there for like 6 years, and I was like, oh my God, it's probably It's probably like there's probably leaks up there. I was like afraid to go up in the attic because I didn't know what I was going to find. So I called a roofer to come look at it. He said, "No, you've probably got 2 years left on this." So I was relieved, but we sold the house shortly after that. That wasn't the only reason, but it was one of those things like, hey, we're kind of what we thought at the top of the market here. If we wait another 2 years to sell and move, we don't know really what we want to do. But if we wait 2 more years, we're gonna have to tear down the garage and do something about that. We're gonna have to put a new roof on, and then at that point the appliances are old, so we're probably gonna have to spend $10,000 on appliances, and plus there's some other cosmetic things that we'd like to redo. We painted the house twice. I mean, in that 6 years, which isn't very expensive, but it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
And plus we had kind of outgrown it, so it was like we had reached that pinnacle point of like where even if we had to give up a little bit of money by not waiting, right? To sell it, we probably ended up making out anyways. Because I look at it now, even as hot as the market got after that, yeah, we could have sold it for probably 35 or $40,000 more if we sold it like at what at this point appears to have really been the peak, which would be like the spring of 2022. We maybe at the very top of the market maybe would have got like 190, but I still think we would have had to put another 25 into the house.
Yeah.
And so what are we talking about? We sold it for like 145 or something like that. So that's another 45,000, but we would have had to put 25 into it, pay another couple thousand in taxes and buyer's agent's commission and whatnot. I mean, so if we would have stayed and suffered in that house for 2 more years, we could have made another, $15,000 or something like that. But there's other ways to make $15,000.
Yeah.
Suffering in a house isn't the way to go. Go rent a townhouse like we did and feel like you're on vacation every single day when you come home and don't have to worry about cutting the grass, and you got amenities in the neighborhood. You've got a great location and all of that stuff. So, and we got a really great deal on the townhouse too. So everything worked out there. So I don't know what else. Any other questions or points about renting, or did we pretty much beat that topic to death, do you think?
Mm, I think we're done talking about renting. I'm just wanting you to maybe to like talk about like the property taxes in Pittsburgh, because like
Mm.
before I moved here, everyone's telling me in Pittsburgh it's like affordable city, but you have to watch the property tax.
Yeah, so I think one of the other things I saw in that article, and certainly we've seen other articles on the topic of affordability in
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh being one of the most affordable. Um, Obviously, we deal primarily in, obviously real estate and buying and selling of real estate. So we look at home prices, but monthly payments and affordability is a big part of that, and making sure that, a bank might tell somebody they're pre-approved for 250. We go show them a house that's 250. They love it. We make an offer, and then they find out that their mortgage is going to be $1,000 more a month than
Yeah.
the number that they made up in their head because nobody took the time to tell them what that monthly payment was going to be. That's bad. So we do probably focus on all the numbers and the monthly payments more than most agents or teams do. Usually that's left up to the lenders, and I know from experience we work with some really great lenders, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes people come to us and they've already got a lender. They've talked to somebody on the outside and they think they've got all the answers, but they don't know what questions they should be asking, or that they didn't ask. So like monthly payments a big part of that, and property taxes is going to be the biggest impact on your monthly payment. I don't know that property taxes in Pittsburgh are worse than some other areas or cities. Now that goes into affordability in general too, because even prices, you can go to Ohio 2 hours away, right on the other side of the
Mm-hmm.
border of Ohio, and buy a way nicer house for $300,000 than what you can get here for $300,000. But you're not in a city. You're in, rural Ohio. Who knows what you're getting for schools? I don't, nothing against the schools in rural Ohio. I don't know if they're good or not, but you're not in a city. You don't have those amenities, and I would assume, probably the school systems are not going to be what they are just because of that alone. So when we talk about affordability, I think you have to compare to other cities that are similar in size or maybe even a little bit larger than Pittsburgh that are going to have the things to offer that we do. And I don't know that the property taxes are or any other tax. Well, I don't know that property taxes are really that much worse in comparison to a Philadelphia. Well, Philadelphia is still in Pennsylvania, so it's probably about the same. Um, but a Chicago or a New York or even Cleveland, which is a city that's probably small, a little bit smaller than Pittsburgh, and probably doesn't have as much to offer, but it's similar, I guess. So yeah, the biggest thing with property taxes when people are moving to Pittsburgh is if they're moving to Pittsburgh, usually they don't know the difference between Allegheny County and Butler County, and people who live here, they think that the difference between Allegheny County and Butler County makes all the difference in the world. And it's really specific to which part of the county you're moving into, and along with which part you're moving into comes price range. So if you're buying a house in the city of Pittsburgh, your property taxes, mainly your school district tax. So let me digress for a second. So in Pennsylvania, we're a commonwealth. So I say this all the time. We're different than Ohio. We don't pay property taxes just to the county. In Ohio and a lot of other states, and I could even be wrong, maybe this isn't true of Ohio, but most other states, you pay taxes to a county, property taxes that is, to a county, and that county kind of handles the schools and the police and everything else. Um, in Pennsylvania, we're a commonwealth, so we have townships and we have boroughs that are these small governments that'll cover a smaller area. Sometimes that's a square mile. The largest township around this area is actually West Deer Township. It covers a large area, but it gets to be pretty rural. So population-wise, I don't know where it fits, but it's definitely not the largest. And inside those townships, they're not inside the townships, but along with those townships, it comes different school districts. So you may have one or more townships that are all kind of signatory to a certain school district where, I would assume it's some sort of contract or some sort of agreement, but basically it says, Hampton Township will send all of our students to Hampton Township School District. So that's just one township. But then if you go into like North Hills, it's all of Westview and Ross Township both combining to send all of their students to North Hills School District. North Allegheny's got, what, 5? They've got Franklin Park, McCandless, Marshall, Bradford Woods. I think that's it. So that's 4. I might have missed one there. McCandless, Franklin Park, Marshall Township, Bradford Woods. I guess that's it. So there's 4 that are all sending 4 townships, 4 different governments, but they all combine to send their students to one school district. That school district has a school board and you pay taxes to the school district. The township has a board or a council, town council, you pay taxes to them. And then you still pay taxes to the county. We have like a county council or whatever you would call it. And then in addition to the state government too. So you can see this difference too in like the police department. So if you watch like movies, there's always like the sheriff. And then if you live in Pittsburgh, you're probably like, what does the sheriff even do? We don't even, you don't call the sheriff. You call like your local police department down the street from your house. So that's like that's a big difference too. Sheriffs are operated by the counties, and we have that here, but that's a whole nother thing that we'll go into, or we won't go into. So looking at which school district you're in is going to be more important, probably in most cases, than which county you're in. The school district is where you're paying the majority of your taxes because that's the high. It costs more to run a school than it does to, put up a couple stop signs and pave the road and cut a little bit of grass on the side of the road, which is what you're looking at with like the township. So if you're in the city of Pittsburgh, you have a very low school district property tax. Even if you're in a neighborhood like Squirrel Hill, where you've got a really high purchase price just within the city of Pittsburgh, or home value, I should say, you've got a pretty low tax millage. So your taxes on a $500,000 home in Squirrel Hill are going to be much lower than they would be on a $500,000 home in Upper St. Clair, or South Fayette, or any number of other townships or school districts where you might have where you might be able to buy a $500,000 home. Now, if you're looking at a $200,000 home, then you may not see as much difference in different townships and the counties, right? So a lot of people that I talk to that are in like the $150,000 range, and again, that's a tough price range. Appreciation has really risen the average or median sale price in Pittsburgh from like 150 up to like 225, 230 in the last couple of years. So, and wages haven't kept up with that. So again, median was 150. Most people, based on the median income here, could afford a $150,000 house 5 or 6 years ago. And those people's income hasn't changed, but the cost of a house or the availability of a $150,000 house has really shrank. And so one thing people look at is, well, where can I get cheaper taxes?
Mm-hmm.
You could go into Butler County. Butler County has coincidentally lower tax millages in all of their school districts. What's not coincidentally is the way they handle their taxes and their assessments and their millage, which would be unique to the county, is handled a little differently. Now, what we'll find is on a $200,000 house, the property taxes aren't going to be that much cheaper. On a $200,000 house in any school district in Allegheny County, aside from the city of Pittsburgh, so let's just say like North Hill School District, North Allegheny School District, if you can find something for 200,000 there, which you can, Pine Township or any of these schools, your taxes on a $200,000 house might be $2,700 a year. If you go to like a Shaler or a Hampton, I'm just trying to think of in the South Hills, certainly like South Fayette has one of the highest millages. Upper St. Clair, if you can find something there for 200,000, you might be looking at a little bit higher, like 3,000 to 3,400. So those tax millages are a little higher there. If you go to Cranberry, which is in Butler County, you've got lower tax millages. You're still looking at 2,500 probably. So you're only looking at the very most, comparing Cranberry to like a Shaler Township, it might be $600 a year. Divide that by 12, that's $50 a month off your mortgage payment. So, I mean, $50 a month is $50 a month, but it's not going to be a drastic difference in what you can afford. And then, of course, the biggest question becomes, can you get what you want for 200,000 in Cranberry versus some of those other areas? If you are looking at a $500,000 house, though, those numbers really start to change proportionally, because in North Allegheny School District on a $500,000 house, your taxes might be $9,000, maybe even $10,000. On a $500,000 house in Cranberry or Mars, Adams Township, your property taxes might be $5,000 to $6,000. So it's like half, and that half is like $5,000. Take that $5,000 divided by 12, and you've got four to what is it, whatever, 400 some dollars a month difference. That's a big significant difference in your affordability and your monthly payment. And yeah, you might be able to raise your budget from 500 to 575 just by going on the other side of the county line there. Excuse me. So in the city of Pittsburgh, however, you still want a $500,000 house, and Squirrel Hill might be looking at property taxes that are somewhere around 6 or 7. And you're, at that point, you're in the city, but you're dealing with city schools compared to like a Mars school district, or, in North Allegheny School District. Obviously, you've got one of the top 3 in the entire state. So you really got to look at what's important to you, and price range and area, neighborhood, amenities, commute times, all of that stuff when you're looking at an area. And not just property taxes, but you definitely want to look at property taxes. That's definitely one of the things that should be on your list. What else can we talk about, Miss Kelly?
Let me see. I think I saw in the end of the article it says like, so across the U.S. that Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, it's the most affordable for owning and the most affordable for rental markets.
The most affordable?
Yeah, like one of them. Like
one of them. 10, yeah. One of them. Yeah, and I think the biggest part of that is the prices and the values. You can't get a home like what you can get in Pittsburgh for 230,000, or let's say 300,000. You can't get that for under 6 or 7 in Chicago or New York or even Philadelphia, or most cities in Texas at this point, and some of these areas that have really grown and
Mm-hmm.
exploded over the last couple years, which we talked about. Obviously, people moving further away from home last week, and we know that a lot of those people have been attracted to those same areas where you have now a lot of increased demand and the same amount of supply, if not less. So prices have really gone up there. So yeah, prices have gone up here too, but it's still pretty sustainable in this market, and prices were really low here before. So for a 50% increase over the last 5 years on a, again, median sale price of 150,000 has only taken us to 225. If the median price was 600 and you went up 50%, now you're at 900, which on monthly payment scale and property taxes and everything is a really big increase and really affects affordability by hundreds and maybe even thousands of dollars a month. Um, versus Pittsburgh, where I don't know what the average payment, like I said, in 2012, or $130,000 house, which was very average, very median. Um, our monthly payment was 950, and that was with like an FHA loan where we didn't put hardly any money down. If at that house today at 200,000 even, which I just said probably wouldn't even sell for 200,000. Maybe let's say it sold for 180. Taxes haven't gone up much over there. I don't know what the payment would be, 1,250, 1,300 or something like that. So it's a $300 or $400, let's just say a $300 a month increase over the course of 10 years. So it's significant, but it's not undoable or unmanageable um, for most people. I mean, we've had 10 years to figure it out. So, um, you know, do what everybody else did and go get a real estate license and become a real estate agent like everybody else and their mother in the last 5 years. So, yeah. Anything else you got in that particular article?
No, I think that's all I got from this article.
Okay. Well, I got something to talk about. I've been spending a lot of time talking to people in the past week about selling their homes themselves for sale by owner versus listing with an agent.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always people that want to do this, especially in a hot seller's market like what we've had here for the last few years. Even with the market shifting, it's interesting. I find a couple things. For one, a lot of them don't know that the market has shifted, which might be a little bit of denial because I don't know how you couldn't have heard it at this point. We've basically spent the last couple weeks disputing headlines and news articles about how terrible the real estate market is. We know it's not terrible, but we know it's not what it was 6 months ago or a year ago, year and a half ago, I should say. So there might be some denial there. The other thing is I think people are realizing that maybe their top line's been affected, so they assume their bottom line's been affected, so they're trying to protect that bottom line, and they think saving money on commission is the way to do that. Well, saving money on commission will help you with your bottom line, but it takes you back to that top line. And are you really going to get as much money for your house if you sell it by yourself than you would working with a good real estate agent? Which is a whole nother thing altogether. I just got done saying, everybody and their mother got their real estate license within the last 5 years. They don't have experience in a normal market. They only have experience in a market where you can put a sign in the yard and put it on the MLS, and then before you even have a chance to pray that it sells, it's already sold. So those agents don't necessarily have the experience yet of what it's going to take. And I say yet, I'm not saying that everybody who got more in the business in the last 3 years specifically. I'm not saying that they're not going to make it or that they don't have the skills, but they need to learn them because certainly you haven't needed them yet for the last 3 years. And I don't know if I don't know how aware that some of these homeowners that are looking to sell a home themselves, how aware they are of the skill level in the real estate market at this point. I've always talked to people who are thinking about selling a home themselves or trying to sell homes themselves in like 2018, I guess it would have been. I would say that 60% of my business was probably working with people who had either tried to sell a home themselves or they had tried to sell a home with another real estate agent who again didn't have the skills to get the home sold in that market, which was still a hot seller's market. And so they were on the market for a while. home came off the market, their contract with that agent expired, and they were looking for a new agent to come in with kind of a new strategy and have actually get the home sold. So, I mean, that was 60% of, well, 60% of our seller business, I should say, not our total business, um, but 60% of our seller clients. So, talking with these people, I've had a lot of experience, and the questions that I that I think I hear, they're not always in the form of a question, but what people don't know is how important is exposure, and what can an agent actually offer you, right? So, and I, there's kind of a connection there where people know that if they list it with an agent, they will get more exposure. The question is, what is that exposure really worth? And I think there's a lot of agents that think that what they bring to the table is exposure because they know if somebody lists their house with them, it's going to go on the MLS and it's going to go on all the other websites. All the other agents are going to see it, and that's exposure. And that's what they have to offer. The problem with that is once you put it on the MLS, what do you do after that besides sit there and pray that one of those other agents sells the house or that some buyer finds it on some website and calls you? And the other question that I hear from a lot of people that are selling a home privately is like, we're offering a buyer's agent's commission. Why are more agents not going out there and just finding a buyer? Why does everyone want to list our house? Why don't they just go out and find a buyer because they can make the same amount of money? Or do you make more when you list a house? And there's confusion about this. And I think the confusion stems from us agents in the business in general, when we're talking to the community, when we're talking to the consumers in a general sense through like marketing, but also when we're talking to them one on one, also when we're talking to each other, I don't think that agents really understand what they get paid for and what the value they bring is. So I just wanted to, and again, I've spent a lot of time talking with people about selling their homes themselves over the last few years. I've never spent a lot of time marketing these kind of answers and solutions and all of that because I don't think there's, even though it's been a big chunk of our business, I don't think it's a big chunk of the market out there in general. I don't think these are the questions that everyone wants to know the answers to. But I think there's value in the answers. So now that we're doing this like podcast format, I think this is the perfect way and the perfect time to address it. I don't think on a reel or a TikTok, I don't think there's that many people out there who are thinking about selling a home themselves. So I don't think they care. But there is some connection between the two, right? Because even if you are not thinking about selling a home yourself and you know you're going to list it with an agent because you don't know any other way to do it, it's still important that you know the value that you're getting from that agent. And it's important that that agent knows the value that they have to offer aside from, hey, I can put your house on the MLS. And that's, again, takes it back to everybody's cousin, nephew, niece, sister, brother, whatever that got their real estate license in the last 3 years. And they go, yeah, I could put it on the MLS for you for $10,000. There's more to it than that. So I guess I'll start with the first question is, we're offering a buyer's agent's commission. Why aren't more agents? Why don't they just go out and find a buyer? Are they lazy or what's the deal? First answer to that, some of them are lazy. Sorry. Not all of them. Here's the second answer. So there's two ways really that agents can get a buyer. And tell me if you think I'm missing something here, Kelly, in your short amount of experience in the business. Give me your perspective on this. But there's two ways that agents can find buyers, or clients in general for that matter, but we're talking about buyers here. And that's sales and that's marketing. Sales tactics and marketing tactics. Those are the tactics that we use to find clients or find buyers. Some agents only do one or the other. Usually it's marketing over sales because everybody wants to get away from sales at this point. But I think really great agents do both. We do both on our team. I was on the phone for an hour and a half this morning before you got here calling. I consider that like an active sales tactic. Your job obviously on our team is marketing. So it's more, well, it's passive in a sense. It's active for you because that's what you do all day long. But you're not talking directly to clients and going, hey, do you want to go buy this house? Right. So it's more passive in that sense of, hey, if you want to buy a house, we can help you. So it's a combination of those two techniques, right? So what happens when we sell and market ourselves, but we also sell and market people's properties? She's vacuuming again. Must be so dirty out there. It's not that bad, I don't think, on the recording. Anyway, so we have to look at who are we selling and marketing to, right? So if I market a house, how am I doing that, right? So we do that by, of course, the obvious professional photos, videos, 360-degree virtual tours. We put it on the MLS. We put it on all the websites, like I said. That's. Let's just kind of leave it at that and focus on that for marketing. Of course, we do email newsletters, um, social media, and all that stuff. In addition to that, sales tactics. We're on the phone every single day. I'm making those phone calls, and but who are we marketing to? So we're marketing and selling to potential buyers directly, and we're also marketing and selling to other agents who may have potential buyers that are their clients, and we're trying to get them to bring their clients to see, typically our listings. There's some overlap there. We have 4,000 people on our email newsletter list. We just broke it down. So what is it now? 1,600,
Yeah,
1,700,
1600.
1,600. Out of those 1,600, I can pretty much guarantee you that 30% of them probably have an agent. They connected with us. They ended up on our email newsletter because they came on our website or they came to an open house. Most of them, it's probably even more than just came to an open house. They would have had to do something else to end up on our email newsletter after that point. But we met them at some point or talked to them or interacted with them. And maybe when I say interacted with them, maybe we didn't even talk to them. People register on our website, they use a phone number, we call the phone number, we text them, they don't respond, whatever. They continue to shop on the website, they continue to get email newsletters from us so we can educate them on the market. We educate them on, I shouldn't say educate them, but certainly show them our new listings to make sure that we're putting those in front of as many people as we can. That's one of our marketing techniques for marketing our listings. If one of those listings is right for that particular buyer, one out of that 1,600 who's looking at it, there's a 30% chance that they have a cousin or brother or nephew or somebody in the business who they're going to call anyways. Or they'll call us, we'll take them to see it, and then they tell us at the house, my brother's an agent. Kind of like, my brother's going to be my agent, even though he doesn't know what he's doing. So we needed you to do all the work, but my mother will kill me if we don't use him as our agent, right? Okay, I get it. I don't want your mother to kill you. So I understand. But as the listing agent, the reason why I'm even doing all those steps and taking it that far to somebody who doesn't have a commitment to work with me, because they're not going to, they're going to work with their brother, is because I represent the seller and it's my job to get their home sold. If it's a for sale by owner and I don't represent that seller, why would I bring that buyer who's not my buyer technically to see that house? And there's safety and security things and all of that beyond that. But just simply putting it, there's a big overlap between buyers who are not working with, let's just say buyers and buyers that are represented by other agents, right? There's also, we talk to another agent and we say, hey, do you have any buyers that are looking in this neighborhood? And they go, yeah, let me send it over to my buyer. The buyer says, yeah, we already saw it. My friend on Facebook shared it. We saw the video in a Facebook group. We saw this, I follow Brian on Instagram, whatever the situation may be. So they're seeing it and being exposed to that property more than once. Most likely, if you're selling a home for sale by owner, you don't have that level of exposure. You might be on all the different websites and all of that stuff, but you're probably not in that sort of like frequent exposure or circulation of exposure or rhythm of exposure that a good agent is going to put your listing in. So I think that's one reason why an agent isn't really is going to be ineffective at going out of their way to market your house to really, I mean, marketing, they're limited legally even in what they can do, but marketing or selling, to use that word, your house to find a potential buyer. Now, the other question that I get from a lot of people that are selling a home themselves is, do you as soon as we call them, because they've gotten calls from 100 agents, I usually start the call by saying, hey, I'm Brian, I'm a local agent, I know you've probably gotten calls from 100 agents. And they go, yes, I have. What do you want? And I go, listen, like I said, I know you gotten calls from a ton of agents. Are you willing to work with an agent to get this house sold? And they go, yeah, you know what? I mean, I'm not against it, you know. So I just kind of come right out front and label like, hey, I know I'm one of a million phone calls that you've gotten from agents, and usually they're tired of talking to agents, right? Their first question is, do you have a buyer? I just said we have 1,600 buyers on our. Really, it's 4,000, right? Because we split the newsletter in half. We didn't eliminate or delete
Mm-hmm.
2,500 people from our database. We've got 4,000. Put most of them buyers with some sellers and a combination of the two, and our friends and family are in there, but the better part of 4,000 buyers. Right now we've got 3 buyers probably that are actively buying, that we're like out showing them properties every single day, right? So the sellers think, well, you've got a fiduciary duty to your buyers where if my house is right for them, you have to bring them. That's great. How do I know your house is right for them? How do they know that your house is right? I mean, of course you as the seller think your house is right for everybody, but how do we even know? Out of those 4,000, I've got 3 that are serious and need to buy a home today and have a pretty good idea of what they want based on the homes that we've already shown them, and them kind of going, okay, yeah, we like this, we don't like this, we thought we liked this, but now that we're seeing it in person in one of these homes, we don't like it, right? So it's progress. So if we get to the point where we go, hey, we found the perfect house, it's not on the market, they're selling it privately, let's go see it. That's one thing. There's 3,999 other buyers in our database who would move if the right house popped up. Some of them would, some of them know they're going to move in the next 3 to 6 months. They're not super active or aggressive, but if we could put the right house in front of them, they'd probably buy it. Or if they once a week or once every couple of days when they hop on realtor.com or on our website and they're browsing, if they see the right house on there, they'll send it to us and say, can we get in there this weekend? 3 months from now, they know that they're going to be more serious. If they don't find something between then, they're going to have to, really focus. But they're not real focused on buying a house right now. And then we've got people that are, that I show them a house once a year when the perfect thing pops up, right? And sometimes the perfect thing it's not what they told me was perfect last year when I took them and showed them another house and they said, this is close, but it's not exactly what we're looking for, and this is what we need. And then a year later they send me something completely different or in a different area because a lot of things change, or the discussions in their household have changed within that year. So we're doing our best to keep in touch with all these buyers and make sure that we are keeping our eyes and ears open for what's best for them. But sometimes they don't even know what's best for them, right? So I can't effectively market your house to those 4,000 buyers in the right way without some sort of a listing agreement, legal permission from the seller to market a home, which is the law. You could give me verbal permission over the phone, but we would have to have a conversation for that. So a lot of the time when I'm calling these people that are selling privately and I say, look, are you willing to work with an agent to get it sold? I'm not just looking to list the property, right? If they need help with listing the property, then I'll certainly help them. But maybe I am looking to find out if it's a good fit for one of our buyers. I made a bunch of calls last week. Sunday, yesterday, I had an appointment to go and look at one of the houses and meet with these people. I called them actually probably a month and a half ago. They called me back a couple days later. They weren't in a big hurry to sell, but they have the house listed. They wanted to see what would happen. Talked to her then, saw that it was still on the market a couple weeks later. Didn't have any buyers that were perfect for that house between, in the month of November. Saw that it was still listed and said, hey, it's in our market. It's close. It's at any given time we could have a buyer for this house. Again, we've only got like 3 people right now. It's December, right? The market's a little slow in terms of eager buyers right now. I would imagine that's for everybody and not just us. I don't think we're doing anything wrong. So I scheduled an appointment. They said, yeah, come by and check the place out and see it firsthand and see what you think. Before I left, I got a call from another guy that I had called earlier in the week who was just calling me back again. Not in a hurry. That's why he took a week to get back to me after I left him a voicemail on Monday. He calls me on Sunday. Tells me he's looking to move in the spring. Tells me we talk about what he has. Okay, good. That's another thing. It's in our market. at any given time, or I should say all the time, we're talking to buyers and they're looking for something similar to what this guy has. Not exactly, but similar. And they only pop up like once a year, right? So I talked to people a year and a half ago who said, if you see anything in this neighborhood, give me a call, right? So now I have to go back and find all those people and who they were and try to see if they're still in the market. And this guy's not even ready to move for 6 months. Well, so I go and meet with these other people. They tell me that they're not ready to move because they don't know where they're going yet, but they tell me what they're looking for. They're looking for something practically identical to what the first guy has, right? So now I've got two people that both want to sell their homes by themselves. I have no agency agreement with either one of them, but one of them could potentially be interested in selling the other one's house, and the timeline kind of matches up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I call and say, hey, I'm calling about the house at 123 Main Street, and they say, do you have a buyer? Yeah, probably, maybe, I hope so. I think so, but I would never even know that if both of those people would have not taken the time to have a conversation with me. And I mean, the one invited me over to their house and showed me around the house, and we sat down and had a conversation for like 10 minutes about what they're looking for. So as agents, it's our job to talk to people about buying and selling real estate. It's our job to know what's out there on the market, what's available, what's coming soon on the market, what's available off market, in case you have one of those conversations where somebody says, hey, I'm looking in this neighborhood, do you have anything? And you go, you know what, I talked to somebody the other day over there's nothing on the market that I'm aware of, but yeah, let me see what I can find out. And managing that 4,000, because that's how people end up in our database. They say, if you see anything in this neighborhood, I'd be interested, right? So then managing and organizing that database so that whenever that house pops up, a month later, 3 months later, 6 months later, we can go and find it. Now, one thing I want to clarify is when we have a buyer who says, I want to be in this neighborhood, this is exactly what I need, and I want to move now, we don't wait 3 or 6 months for that to come up. We'll go and knock on every single door in the neighborhood if we have to and say, hey, have you had any thoughts of moving? And then sometimes those people say, yeah, we've thought about it, but there's no houses available in the neighborhood where we want to go to, right? So it's this like constant cycle of connecting buyers and sellers. So you can't just sit there. You can't just put your listing on the MLS and wait for some other agent to come and see it without ever talking to any buyers. At that point, you're not offering any value to the seller. And as a agent working with buyers, you can't just show them houses that are on the MLS all the time. You're not really offering the full value that you could be to that buyer. It's talking to both, and it's doing it every single day, right? When I call somebody who's selling their house in Gibsonia, I don't know that I could actually be selling a patio home in somewhere else at the time, right? I don't know what that person's looking for. But if I don't make that call and have that conversation, and how am I ever going to make those connections? Mm-hmm. So the other thing there is like, I don't think you don't pay your agent, whether you're buying or selling, but let's just focus on selling. You're not paying that agent to sell your home. You're paying them for all the homes that they didn't sell in the past, right? All the buyers who came through the open house that I did 6 months ago that said, this house is nice, but it's not for me. But now they're in my database and I've talked to them and they've said, yeah, if the right house pops up, or call us in 6 months, or you know what, we have an agent. We just came to the open house because we saw the sign, or our agent's busy today. But if this house had this, this, and this, it would be perfect. Well, now here we are a little bit down the line. Whether it's, I keep saying like 6 months, but it could be 3 weeks later. We've got another listing in the neighborhood and we know who's looking to buy. Now that buyer might be represented by an agent who never actually showed them a house because they're always busy on the weekends, but whatever, that buyer wants to work with their agent. So we know as a listing agent who the buyers are, who we need to reach out to make that connection, whether that buyer is represented by an agent or whether they're not, and they're going to come to us and we're going to represent, both sides.